Welcome back, Truth Seekers, to another captivating episode of Freakish Fridays. Tattooed Biker here with you. And tonight we're taking a deep dive into mysterious reports from the beautiful island of Puerto Rico. From inexplicable sightings to baffling accounts of otherworldly encounters, this tropical paradise has always been a hotbed for UFO and strange phenomena. So now, just kick back and enjoy the ride. In an interview with several young men in Vequez who were members of the local Cadets de la Marina group, a sea cadets organization of the U.S. Navy, they talked about a series of enigmatic encounters they had experienced in some of the lagoons in the eastern part of Vequez, specifically in the area of the Navy's shooting range near Camp Garcia. According to the boys, on several occasions during drills and exercises conducted in the area of El Tapon, they had encountered some very strange, little dark men, gray or black in color, who were very fast and ran speedily from one place to the other, sometimes in a zigzagging motion and at other times in jumps. They would stand suddenly in front of us so that we could see them, and then they would leave running really fast, explained one of the young men while the others approved. They were 3 or 4 feet high and were skinny, with long arms, and their heads were kind of big and egg-shaped. They were weird, he added. Due to the darkness of the night and the speed of the movements of the strange figures, the boys couldn't see details such as eyes, mouth, nostrils. The ex-cadets added that occasionally the little dark men would jump into the lagoon, disappearing underwater. They also revealed having observed, quote, various shining blue-white spheres that vary in size, from 4 to 8 inches in diameter, that enter the water or lagoons in the area. Something similar to the ones observed by witness Encarnacion and his fellow fishermen. Due to these incidents and their degree of high strangeness, the young men decided not to perform any more exercises or drills at night in these areas. UFOs over the airport. Location: Luis Munoz Marion International Airport, Carolina, Puerto Rico. Time 8:20 to 8:30 p.m. The witness is an airport worker. The pseudonym Mr. Rodriguez is used here as the witness is fearful of being dismissed should his real name become known. He describes the object as a round light, larger than an airplane and very bright. Other lights of greater intensity and size, white in color, triangle-shaped. Mr. Rodriguez works at one of the airport's offices. He has a view of the new airport control tower from his window, as well as of El Yonkai and other landmarks. Rodriguez claims that this year some lights have been hovering over the new tower, remaining static and then just disappearing. These lights are either red or white in color. Rodriguez also claims to see a very large, powerful light between 8:20 and 8:30 p.m., white and triangular shaped. He compares this light to the brightness of an airliner belonging to San Martin Air, adding that the UFO's light is even stronger than the lights of this aircraft. He says that whenever he's with a customer and sees the lights, he points them out and they too are startled. When he makes inquiries among the pilots, they always say they've seen nothing at all. He believes that they've been told not to speak for fear of dismissal. The triangular UFO impresses the witness greatly for its size, shape, and brightness. When he realized that at the time that his sightings usually occur, there's also a scheduled American Eagle flight at 8:20 toward Vequez, he decided to board this flight with a skeptical friend to see the object more closely and to get his friend to believe him. Rodriguez says that as the American Eagle flight gained altitude, it was necessary to look towards route number 3, as this is where the light appears to emerge from towards the beach area. The UFO approached the plane sufficiently to show that it was larger than the airliner, and then it made a U-turn, heading for Fardiano, and then toward Vequez, as though heading for nearby islands. Rodriguez says that he alerted all of the passengers and asked the co-pilot about the strange light. He replied, "Forget about it," which led Rodriguez to believe that the pilots are forbidden to discuss what's going on, or else didn't want to alarm them. Lights over the highway. February 18th in 2005. Professor Ronaldo Rios. He states that Friday the 18th, about 6:30 p.m., I was visiting the zone of Highway 303 throughout the route between Lajas and Red Cabo Rojo country, when I noticed a presence of a luminous object suddenly moving from the west towards me. The object moved quickly and was shining clear color. It looked like a washing machine, and it went towards the top of the mountain. Several other people stopped on the highway next to Rios to try and observe the object more closely. Similar reports were telephoned into the police station from the area, including another sighting near the radial transmitters. Among the incidents of this type that has occurred in recent years, which have upset the federal and local authorities in the island, there are two that stand out. The first one has to do with the sighting. Two pilots, one of them a member of the police of Puerto Rico, had in the summer of 1995, of an extraordinary flying saucer-type craft in the waters south of the municipality of Guanliano. In his report, the officer, who's asked that his identity remain as anonymous, told of what they saw. That it was incredible, said the officer. We left in a private Cessna airplane from Cabo Rojo West to the airport of Mendocino in Piance. It was about 3 p.m. and it was a beautiful, clear, sunny day without any clouds. We were flying a few miles south of Gualiano, over the sea, and suddenly we saw that object. It was an incredible sight. There, submerged just below the water, was an object similar to an enormous flying saucer. It was submerged under the water, but not very deep, and we could appreciate its detail. It was a very big object, round and appeared to be metallic, opaque gray in color, like flat pewter aluminum. It had 4 stories, each with smaller in diameter, like a cake, and in each floor it had what seemed to be many square windows. On the top floor or section, it had a very large dome, very big, also metallic. It seemed to us that it was 400 some feet in diameter. We couldn't believe what we saw. It was something extraordinary. A police officer said that they decided to examine it, circling the object, and discovered with great amazement that the object measured at least a mile in diameter. It took them 7 minutes to totally circumvent the object. The enormous object, in the shape of a disc, was just lying under the water without any sign of activity, either in its interior or outside of it. With great astonishment and a bit scared, they decided to leave the area, landing later at the Messina airport in Ponce. Once there, they told other people about what they saw, and they were told of similar incidents that had occurred in the region. As it were, a couple of days after the sighting of this great UFO, better described as a USO, or an unidentified submerged object, 2 fishermen from the area had an impressive encounter with a similar object, perhaps the same one, of gargantuan dimension, that exited from the sea in front of them, surrounded by great luminosity. Both fishermen suffered what appeared to be severe radiation burns and were medically treated. Sociologist and professor of the Inter-American University of Puerto Rico, Gayer Suez, has been very active in the peaceful civil disobedience groups fighting for the U.S. Navy to stop its military exercises and bombing in Vasquez. Suez was staying in the Camp of Justice and Peace in front of the entrance to Camp Garcia. This camp was organized by Mr. Roberto Rabin and his wife, Nadilda Medina. Suez reported something that he and several other companions had observed inside the military zone. One night, between the 27th and the 29th of April, 2001, at about 9:30, we were up on Mount Carmelo, observing the zone with binoculars, hoping for a sign, a Bengal light, similar to fireworks or flares, to alert the civilians that were in the shooting range, and all at once we saw an object. It seemed to be a star, but much too large and very brilliant. It appeared suddenly and was very brilliant, much illuminated. There was no moon that night, so it could be clearly seen and identified by the light that emanated from it, if it had been something recognizable. We continued to observe it with binoculars. It was a long oval with approximately 7 smaller, brilliant ovals in its interior, all along the length of its structure. It was emitting a very brilliant, bluish-white light like the light from an electric welder. It was suspended in the air, completely static and motionless. It was neither a plane nor a helicopter, nor a dirigible or blimp. We observed it for approximately 15 minutes. Someone called us and we turned our heads for a few seconds, and when we looked back again, it was gone. Suat indicated that the object was suspended at an average height, and what we saw was not very far from observation post number 1, or from the soldiers' barracks inside Camp Garcia. That night, there was a great number of Navy personnel and civilian protesters inside, so they definitely had to notice this display. Finally, he said, we all saw it, and we began to discuss the details of the sighting among ourselves, but found no explanation. It was an objective fact, something we can neither deny nor explain, but it was there and we saw it. It's not that we believe in extraterrestrial beings or anything of the sort, but a person with a scientific background could not deny the fact of what we saw. It was an unknown. We think that it may have been one of the Navy's strange exercises. It might be something we don't know about. Decidedly, it was an unidentified flying object, suspended in the sky, and it disappeared as suddenly as it appeared. In all honesty, I must say that there are strange things happening that can't be accounted for. But I saw it and stand by what I've said. It was comparable to what they mention in so-called UFO case phenomena. I think it's something that must be investigated. Testimonial evidence from Miss Mercedes Sanez and her husband, Don Luis Ortiz. Mr. Ortiz was employed at the Sun Bay Resort, south of Vequez. For many years, he is dedicated to part-time fishing, as are a good number of other witnesses. Don Luis Ortiz said, I will say that I have seen some strange objects in the sky. They are large and very bright, and they are always followed by 4 smaller objects, also very bright. At the distance I've seen them from, they are bigger than my Jeep. His vehicle is about 6 to 7 feet long. This gives you an idea of the size of these things, and I've always seen them around 9 to 9:30 at night, often while working at Sun Bay. They come from the west, moving eastward toward the area of Camp Garcia and the Navy's firing range. I've seen them often and for years. I've always wondered about the sound because they aren't airplanes or helicopters or anything I know of. They don't make any noise. They don't have engines or turbines, nothing at all. They have an oval shape and are rounded, and the other small objects always follow the large one, as if they were in formation. The large one has a very large, bright yellow-orange light, and the other 4 are also bright as stars, and each one has a different color: white, yellow, red, and blue, and sometimes they just stop in midair. In turn, Mercedes indicated that on one occasion she saw them next to her husband from the balcony of their residence in La Mina. It called me, she said, and when I went out I could see it. It was very large, very bright, golden yellow light. It was going towards the east, towards Camp Garcia. It always goes there, or it comes from there going to the west. The time it remained suspended in the air, very quietly for half an hour, more or less, and then it was gone. It was something very unusual, but we thought that it was probably something from the Navy, so we just left and didn't talk about it to anyone. There are also incidents describing encounters with humanoid creatures in some of the local lagoons. According to Mr. Ortiz, who says, yes, that is true. Those little men are seen here, and not only now, they've been seen before, since long ago, for many, many years now. I'm telling you this because I have seen them, he indicated, and not only me, but also those who fish in Kiani Lagoon. Many times when we went fishing during the day we saw them. They are quite quick, and they have incredible agility." He went on to describe them further. "They are strange, very thin with very skinny legs, resembling those of chickens. I say that because on their feet they have 3 thin, long toes, and they look like chicken feet because they're long, thin, and opened. They are pale, white, or gray, and very small, no more than 3 or 4 feet in height. And they have small human-like faces with eyes, a small nose, mouth, but with a flattened, pushed-in face, not like ours since we have protruding noses, and their eyes are dark." When asked how they had their hair, Ortiz answered, "They don't have any hair, and their heads are very large compared to the size of their bodies. Their heads are smooth and bald." Ortiz added that when they went to Kiani Lagoon, located in Vasquez extreme west, they always saw several of these creatures. "We saw a few," he said, "but they were moving at an incredible speed, and they were jumping and plunging into the waters of the lagoon. Their arms are also skinny, and they have something. I can't explain it well because it was dark, but it was like they had a fleshy web between their chest and their arms. And it also seemed to me that they had webbed fingers on their hands, but I'm not very sure." According to the Puerto Rican newspaper El Vocero, flying discs are reported by several eyewitnesses during late April 1997. People living in the Pelea section of Anasaco, Puerto Rico, reported the presence of strange flying objects over Anasaco's skies. Although some of the residents declined to be identified out of fear of being laughed at, they stated that the flying discs crossed the sky in a north-south direction. A worker at a filling station located near Highway 2 explained that one of the objects was circular in shape, extremely shiny, and moved at a prodigious rate of speed. It stood still for a moment, and 6 more lights came out of that thing. They flew off in different directions, noted the witness. Following this, he explained, the strange flying discs fell into formation and returned to the larger object. They flew 2 by 2 and re-entered the large light, he indicated. This version was also confirmed by an Nasco farmer, who claimed having seen the strange lights as he traveled along State Highway 2 from Mayaguez to this community. In 1975, during a particularly heavy period of UFO activity in Puerto Rico, Orlando Francini, an ambulance driver for a Catholic hospital in the city of Piance, had returned home after 8 p.m. on the evening of April 17th when he realized that something was roaming around in his backyard. Whatever it was, it caused his dog to jump into the air in a furious attempt at jumping over the fence and away from the patio. Thinking that some children may be playing a prank on him, Franceschi went outside to take a closer look, arming himself with a shovel. The curious homeowner was soon faced by a creature that he would later describe as a zombie. The entity, allegedly, had long, pointed ears, a long nose, lipless mouth, and appeared to have grayish, ashen skin. It had black spots for eyes, and a jawline reminiscent of an ape's. It ambled towards the human with jerky, stiff gait. Taking no chances, he struck the 5-foot-tall intruder with the shovel. The creature suffered no ill effects from what he himself considered to have been a terrific blow. It merely backed off, allowing the human to strike it a second time with the garden tool, also without visible effect. When the ambulance driver was about to deliver a third shovel blow, he felt himself becoming paralyzed and helpless. On the southeast coast of Puerto Rico, a former U.S. infantry officer and 3,000-hour commercial pilot writes, "My wife and I live on the southeast coast of Puerto Rico, and we are in the habit of sitting on our roof at night, looking out at the sky since it's cooler and breezier up there. About 3 months ago, at about 11 p.m., on a clear night, we both became aware simultaneously of 3 ruby-red lights, bright and distinctly visible, like car tail lights or red aircraft navigation lights, approaching us from the south to north. as we viewed them in a symmetric V formation, one leading and two trailing. After 3 seconds of this motion, the three lights diverged, the lead light continuing straight, and each of the trailing lights turning 90 degrees away from the original direction. The lights passed more or less overhead as they made this divergence, and then they simply didn't fade away into the distance, but vanished out of sight in about 2 seconds. Just poof, and they were gone. We had the impression that they were several thousand feet above sea level, and the rate of movement must have been much faster than our fastest fighters. On Monday, January 5th, 2009 at 11 p.m., several witnesses reported the maneuvers of two red spheres coasting along the sea, parallel to State Highway No. 2, which connects the cities of Piance and Guadalajara. According to several witnesses, both objects were traveling in formation, one following the other at prodigious speed and low altitude. On January 6th at 7:34 p.m., witnesses from Lajas, Cabo Rojo, and Guanacia reported three red spherical lights moving at high speed. When interviewed, these witnesses confirmed that the objects were noiseless and traveled from west to east along the sea line. On December 22nd, 2007, Wilma and Frank were headed back toward Bayamon from the city of Ponce. Upon reaching Los Filtros around 6:10 p.m., they watched the sunset and the arrival of twilight. Suddenly, Wilma looked at the sky and saw what she first thought was a jet. She quickly realized this was not the case, and that it could be a shooting star, but dismissed the possibility as the object remained in view and grew larger in size. She then thought that it was a meteorite or something that had broken away and was falling towards the ground. That's when she asked Frank to look up. Thinking that it was a meteorite or something similar, Frank told her it was a jet airplane. Wilma replied that those airplanes left smoke in their wake, and this one had light. She added that it wasn't a normal aircraft, as it was flying forward, and not the customary route followed by commercial planes. Frank agreed with this assessment and continued driving as they kept their eyes on the object. When they passed the military academy, the object stopped. Judging by the way the light came down, it appeared cone-shaped. Suddenly, Wilma realized that another light of the same size pulled up beside it and then over the object. Unlike the first one, Wilma did not see a descending shaft of light from this craft. It only hung above the first one for a few seconds. Then the cone-shaped object made a right turn, as if heading towards San Juan, making an L turn. It didn't turn like a commercial airliner would, rather in a perfect turn that startled the onlookers. Both objects moved in unison, and the lights suddenly disappeared. And there it is. All I have for tonight. Thanks for watching. With everything that's going on with the UAP hearings happening in Congress this month, it seemed like a good idea to revisit the UFO phenomenon. If you've had any experiences like these, feel free to let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear them. So thanks again. Stay curious, stay vigilant, stay safe, and I'll be seeing you soon, a little ways down the road. Biker out.